Hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing well and having a great day. I'm so excited to be back for this new episode on schizoaffective disorder. And today I'm here to talk to you about emotional regulation. Now, emotional regulation, if you have schizoaffective disorder like I do, emotional regulation has either been a big issue for you or it is a big issue for you. And, you know, certain people might call you dramatic, over the top. You might have a tendency to overreact to situations or react in a disproportionate measure to things. I remember when I was a teenager, I was such a perfectionist that if I got the wrong answer to someone's question and they were able to prove me wrong, it was so unbearable to me to have made a mistake. I was so ashamed of having made a mistake. As simple as getting the name of a street wrong. I could not handle not being right or being imperfect or showing weakness or showing a flaw. I was afraid people would judge me for it, and I was basically afraid to be human. I I really was petrified of making mistakes in any area of my life. And little by little, that anxiety grew so much that I was I felt paralyzed and I couldn't do anything because if it couldn't be perfect, it wasn't going to happen. So the issue became that for most of my life, anxiety was a permanent companion. It was almost so subtle yet so present that I wasn't even aware for the longest time that I had anxiety. I didn't have the perspective necessary to realize just how much of a fear-based personality I had. And it was preventing me from doing all sorts of things because I was afraid of ridicule, afraid of failure, afraid of judgment, afraid of saying the wrong thing. And so I let fear run my life. And that fear always made me want to just run away. But what I ended up doing was disconnecting from reality when it got too overwhelming. Hence, my schizoaffective disorder. Depression did play a factor too, and I'll get to that in a minute, but let's just finish with anxiety first. Till last September, I didn't know what it felt like to not feel anxiety. And then last September, finally, one day, nothing special even happened that day. I just had an aha moment. I realized I felt good. And I searched for that anxiety inside of me and it wasn't there. Now that doesn't mean I'm never anxious, but it does mean that exercising certain techniques have really reduced my anxiety to negligible levels. And when I do feel an anxiety now, it's quite easy for me to identify what I'm anxious about because not only have I put a lot of order in my life and I act in alignment with my values, my feelings, my moods, my emotions. Like, for example, if there's like a family dinner that's giving you anxiety, my recommendation, don't go. Don't go. Because I've been there, and I end up disconnecting from reality, just going in my own world, not really listening to conversations that are going on around the table. And every time we disconnect from reality without learning how to reconnect to reality is where we fall more and more into our illness. And I'm going to teach you two grounding techniques that are amazing at relieving panic attacks and anxiety. So, the first one I'm going to teach you is a more routine, something you can do every day right before going to bed or something, and add to your routine just to teach yourself how to connect to the present moment and to reality. And the second one is actually very, very effective for panic attacks, for higher levels of anxiety. So, starting with the first exercise, I want you to put both feet firmly on the ground. And what we're going to do is we're going to take one big inhale followed by one big exhale. And while you're doing the inhale, exhale, I want you to raise your shoulders with the inhale and then drop your shoulders on the exhale. And then we'll get to step 3. So step number 1, let's do it together. And now number 3, I want you to feel the ground beneath your feet. You can do it in socks and shoes, it doesn't matter. Just pay attention to the sensations on the soles of your feet. It's called a point of consciousness. You're putting your attention on the soles of your feet, and that connects you to the energy of the earth. And it's an extremely powerful grounding technique that you can do for a few seconds if you're just having mild anxiety and you just need to, and then move on with your day. But step number 3, you can actually stay there a while and just enjoy and watch your anxiety drift away as you connect to the present moment. Now, there are chances that if you've never done any meditation and you've never done any breath work, or you are resistant to these things, whatever the case may be kind to yourself and give the exercise a chance to work. Because right now, if it's not really effective for you, it's probably because you're a beginner at it. And when we're a beginner, it's like anything, we're going to make mistakes. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But just like with anything, practice makes better. And I've actually been doing this technique regularly doing this technique for about 2 years now. And last September, I finally felt, for the first time in my conscious memory, I finally felt what it feels like to not feel anxiety. For the first time in my life, I wasn't in survival mode anymore last September. That's how long it's taken. But regardless of how long it took to get here, I can really thank, well, not only this breathing technique, but a lot of the personal development work that I've done has also helped. But this grounding technique, breathing technique, has been life-changing, and I really encourage you to give it a try and see what it does for you. So, moving on. The second technique that I want to teach you, and now this one is really, really effective at quieting anxiety. And this one I'm not exactly going to do with you. I'm just going to give you the 5 bullet point of the exercise. So, this second exercise is made up of 5 bullet points. Now, number one, take the time to name 5 things that you can see. And then, when you've done that, take the time to name 4 things you can hear. After that, name 3 things that you can feel, perceive with your skin. After that, name 2 things that you can perceive either with the sense of smell or taste. And finally, name 1 thing you know for sure. This exercise has a similar grounding in reality and connecting to reality. But this one I tend to only use if someone or myself is having a panic attack. It's one of those in case of emergency tools that you can use on yourself or other people if they're struggling with anxiety. And practice always makes better. So with a little practice, you'll get better and better at these little grounding, anxiety relieving techniques, and the more effective they'll become for you. It really does take practice. It's kind of like learning how to walk or run. It takes time before you master the craft. It takes practice. So now let's delve into regulating your depression. Because if you have schizoaffective disorder, depression is part of the deal. Well, I mean, it doesn't have to always be the case, but it either has been or is. So now let's tackle the depression side of things, because it's important to have tools in your toolbox that allow you to regulate your emotions well enough so that you don't drown in your depression. And none of us want to be on antidepressants. So there are ways in which you can regulate your depression so that with time you might not need medications to regulate that side of things. So let's talk about regulating your depression. Now that we've looked over some tips and tricks about regulating anxiety, which is essentially apprehension of what might come, so apprehension of the future. Depression is actually a state in which you are stuck in the past, in the pain of the past, or maybe the nostalgia of the past, or maybe you're angry at people in your past, or there's a sense of hopelessness also, in which you don't think that things will ever get better. We feel that depression and that pain of the past to an extreme. And that usually happens when we don't understand that it's our thoughts that shape reality and not reality that shapes our thoughts. And I'll explain myself here. Imagine I'm having a really good day. I'm in a good mood, I'm being chatty, like having a conversation with my next door neighbor as we cross in the hallway, maybe talking to a few other dog walkers while I'm out with my dogs. If I'm in a good mood, that's how my day will go. Now, if I'm feeling down, if I'm feeling a bit depressed, if my energy levels are a bit out of whack, in those cases, I might really get aggravated at my next door neighbor for wanting to have a conversation with me that day. She might get on my nerves just because I didn't get enough sleep the night before. And then I'll walk my dogs, and maybe I won't stop and chat with other dog walkers. Your mood, your thoughts, the way that you talk to yourself, that's what shapes our reality. And I'm not telling you to be positive all the time, to negate the darker sides of yourself. So, regulating your depression, actually, the first step is observing the thoughts that you have about yourself and just observing them without judgment. You can write them down if you want, if that helps for you to visualize the way that you are talking to yourself. Like if you drop a glass of water, how do you react? Is it the end of the world? Or are you able to brush it off and just pick up the pieces and keep going? Because if your negative dialogue is telling you, oh, fuck, I'm so stupid, I should have paid more attention, I'm such a klutz, will I ever learn? This is ridiculous. Or you might blame the world, or blame someone else for making you spill over the glass or something. That's one reality. That's one way to live. And that's usually the type of inner dialogue that you can find with people who do have depression or bipolar disorder or schizoaffective disorder. It's that constant negative self-talk where you are just being so mean to yourself that if you were your own best friend, you probably give yourself a wake-up call and be like, dude, stop talking to yourself like that. You're amazing. Just be you. It's okay to make mistakes. So I'm after observing your thoughts and writing them down to get an idea of what your inner dialogue is like, how you treat yourself on the inside. Become the observer of your thoughts. Stop identifying with your thoughts, but observe your thoughts, and then kindly, then you, with all the kindness and compassion in the world towards yourself, you are allowed to change the narrative. And instead of being judgmental towards yourself, more judgmental than you'd probably ever be towards anyone else, how about just saying, it's okay, I'll take accountability, but I'll keep moving on. Depression is a tough one. It helps if you reach out to people and you talk about it. Connection is so important. More than anything that I've just told you, the more hugs you can get a day, the better health you'll be in. The last thing I wanted to talk about in regards to emotional regulation was the importance of good nutrition. The issue that most of us have in regards to our nutrition these days is an excess intake of sugar. Cut carbs as much as you can. Bread, pasta, rice, potatoes. Cut all those things from your diet. Certainly no processed foods. I would recommend that you do a bunch of research on the ketogenic diet. There's all sorts of ketogenic recipes that you can find online. Plenty of healthy options out there. I think that you'll find that this ketogenic diet will revolutionize your ability to regulate your emotions. Just like with any substance, when you quit the sugars, you might have withdrawal symptoms. What really helped me with that was taking magnesium, daily magnesium. That helps with sugar cravings and has so many other beneficial properties that I will let you discover by doing your own research. But definitely, if you have schizoaffective disorder, consider the importance of good nutrition for someone like you. It really is life changing, and I'm really happy that I became aware of the correlations between good nutrition and mental wellness. And that's about it for today. So I hope you enjoyed. Remember, for anxiety, you've got the 1, 2, 3 breathing technique with the shoulders going up and down and the grounding of the feet. Then you've got the 5 senses bullet points that end with naming one thing you know for sure. And then for depression, one of the worst things you can do is isolate. And so, but if you're not well enough to go out and see people or have people come see you, or if that's just not an option for you, give yourself a hug, like a real one, like for real, like you're hugging your best friend, and treat yourself more kindly. That doesn't mean let yourself off the hook for things. No, you're accountable for your actions. You're honest with yourself about where you need to take responsibility for what, and also for when things have nothing to do with you. Take accountability for your actions, but don't beat yourself up for mistakes. That's how you learn. So keep going. And remember, if you have schizoaffective disorder, don't give up. I know that you can have a good quality of life. I know that you can live with a purpose. I know that you have the ability to be passionate about so many things. And I know that you're going to be fully capable of replacing that fear by curiosity and that depression with a feeling of being whole, and that anxiety with absolute zen. And practice always makes better. All right, I think that's about it. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. And I will see you very, very soon for my next topic. And if you have questions, don't hesitate to ask them in the comments. And I will see you all very soon. Love to all.